In a universe where the strong devour the weakened, mercy is considered a fatal flaw. One species dares to be different. While alien empires build their power on the broken backs of the conquered, humans choose a path that baffles their enemies and inspires their allies. This is the story of how a dying creature, abandoned by its own kind and left to rot in the depths of space, became the catalyst for a revolution that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. What happens when the galaxy's most feared battle beast meets the only species crazy enough to show it kindness? What happens when humanity's greatest weakness becomes their most devastating weapon? Some call it foolishness. Others call it hope. The universe is about to learn that sometimes, the most powerful force in existence isn't a weapon or a fleet, it's the simple act of refusing to let something die alone. Get ready for a journey that will challenge everything you think you know about strength, survival, and what it truly means to be human in a cold, unforgiving universe. The mining freighter Dusty Rose drifted through the Kepler debris field like a metal whale searching for scraps. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the viewport, watching chunks of destroyed starships tumble past in the eternal darkness. 3 months of salvage work had yielded barely enough scrap to cover fuel costs, and her crew was getting restless. "Another dead zone, Captain," called out Marcus from the scanner station. The young man's voice carried the weight of disappointment that had become all too familiar. "Nothing but twisted metal and radiation signatures." Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. The Kepler field was what remained of a massive battle between two alien empires 6 months ago. The Vortak hegemony and the Zalani collective had turned this region into a graveyard, leaving behind the shattered remains of hundreds of warships. Most salvage crews had already picked through the valuable pieces, leaving only the dangerous or worthless debris for latecomers like her team. "Keep scanning, Marcus. Something's gotta pay the bills." She turned away from the viewport and walked toward the bridge's center console, where holographic displays showed the ship's status. The Dusty Rose wasn't much to look at, a converted mining vessel with patched hull plating and engines that coughed more than they should, but she was home to Sarah and her 5-person crew. Elena Vasquez, the ship's engineer, looked up from a maintenance panel. "We've got maybe 2 days of supplies left, Sarah. After that, we're eating recycled protein bars and hoping the water reclamation system doesn't break down again." The captain nodded grimly. Elena was right, as usual. The engineer had a gift for stating uncomfortable truths in the most direct way possible. It was one of the reasons Sarah trusted her completely, even when those truths stung. "Marcus, expand the search grid. Look for anything we might have missed." Sarah moved to the communications station where Raj Patel was monitoring long-range transmissions. "Any word from the other salvage crews?" Raj shook his head, his dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of his screens. "Most of them have moved on to the outer rim. Word is there's a fresh battlefield near the Proxima sector." He paused, adjusting his headset. "I'm picking up some strange signals though. Might be interference from all the damaged ships around here." Sarah was about to respond when Marcus suddenly straightened at his station. "Wait, I'm getting something weird on the deep scan. There's a massive object about 3 kilometers off our starboard side, hidden behind that cluster of Vortak hull fragments." "Massive how?" Sarah moved to look over his shoulder at the scanner display. "I mean really massive. Whatever it is, it's bigger than our ship, but the readings are strange. It's giving off minimal power signatures, but there's definitely something alive in there." Elena set down her tools and joined them at the scanner station. "Alive? In the middle of a debris field? That's not possible. Nothing could survive out here for 6 months without life support." "I'm telling you what the scanners are showing," Marcus insisted. "Biosigns are faint, but they're there. And the object itself, it's not made of any metal I recognize. The composition readings are all over the place." Sarah studied the display, her mind racing through possibilities. In her 15 years of salvage work, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Something about this felt different from the usual scrap metal and abandoned cargo pods they typically found. "Can you get us a visual?" she asked. Marcus worked at his controls, redirecting the ship's external cameras. The main screen flickered, then showed the debris field outside. Slowly, he panned the camera toward the coordinates his scanner had identified. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Floating among the wreckage was something that defied easy description. It looked organic rather than mechanical, like a massive seed pod or cocoon made of what appeared to be living tissue. The surface was a deep purple-black color, covered in ridges and patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow. It was easily 20 meters long and half as wide, dwarfing even the largest pieces of starship debris around it. "What in the hell is that thing?" Elena whispered. Before anyone could answer, Dr. James Wright emerged from the ship's small medical bay. The elderly physician had been taking a rare break from cataloging their previous salvage finds when the excitement on the bridge drew his attention. He looked at the screen and immediately moved closer, his scientific curiosity overriding any caution. "Extraordinary," he breathed. "I've never seen anything like it." The bioluminescent patterns suggested might be some kind of living vessel or perhaps a creature's protective shell. "Living vessel?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Doc, that thing's been floating in space for months. How could anything survive without air or heat?" Dr. Wright adjusted his glasses, studying the image intently. "Many species have evolved incredible survival mechanisms. Some can enter states of suspended animation that last for years. Others can survive in the vacuum of space for extended periods." He pointed to the pulsing patterns on the creature's surface. "Those lights could indicate some form of metabolic activity. Whatever's inside might still be alive." Tommy Nakamura, their youngest crew member and general maintenance worker, had been quietly listening from his position near the engine monitoring station. Now he stepped forward, his expression troubled. "Captain, what if it's some kind of weapon? I mean, we're talking about a battlefield here. Maybe one of the alien empires was using biological weapons." Sarah considered this. Tommy had a point. Both the Vortak hegemony and the Zalani collective were known for their ruthless tactics. The possibility that this was some kind of biological weapon couldn't be ignored. "The readings don't suggest any immediate danger," Marcus reported, still studying his scanners. "No radiation, no chemical emissions that I can detect. If it's a weapon, it's not an active one." Elena crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "Even if it's not dangerous right now, bringing something like that aboard our ship could be suicide. We don't know what it is, where it came from, or what might happen if we disturb it." Dr. Wright turned from the screen to face the group. "With respect, Elena, we also don't know if something intelligent is dying in there while we debate. If there's even a chance that we could save a life. Our first priority has to be the safety of this crew," Sarah interrupted firmly. She looked around at her team, these people who had become like family to her over the years of working together. Each face showed a different emotion: Marcus's curiosity, Elena's caution, Dr. Wright's compassion, Tommy's fear, and Raj's thoughtful consideration. "I say we take a closer look," Raj spoke up unexpectedly. "Not bring it aboard, just get close enough for better scans. If it's dangerous, we back off. If it's valuable." He shrugged. "We could use the money." Sarah nodded slowly. Raj's suggestion made sense. They needed to gather more information before making any major decisions. "Marcus, take us in slowly. I want continuous scans running, and if anything changes anything at all, we pull back immediately." The Dusty Rose began moving toward the mysterious object, its engines humming quietly in the vacuum of space. As they drew closer, more details became visible on the main screen. The surface of the pod or creature was covered in what looked like scars, long, jagged marks that could have been battle wounds. Some areas appeared to be damaged or partially torn open, revealing glimpses of something within. "Captain," Marcus called out, his voice tight with excitement or concern, "I'm detecting multiple life signs now. Whatever's in there, it's not alone. But the readings are getting weaker." Dr. Wright leaned forward intently. "How much weaker?" "Dropping steadily. At this rate." Marcus ran calculations on his console. "Maybe a few hours before they fade completely." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If there were living beings inside that organic pod, they were dying. The question was whether the crew of the Dusty Rose would risk their own lives to help complete strangers from an unknown species. Sarah stared at the screen, watching the faint bioluminescent patterns pulse across the creature's surface. Each pulse seemed slightly weaker than the last, like a failing heartbeat. In her years of salvage work, she'd seen plenty of death, the cold, empty husks of destroyed ships and the personal belongings of crew members who hadn't made it out alive. But this was different. This was death happening in real time, and they had the power to possibly prevent it. Elena, what would we need to bring something that size aboard? She asked quietly. The engineer looked surprised. Captain, you're not seriously considering, just answer the question. Elena sighed and thought for a moment. We'd have to use the main cargo bay. Clear out everything we've salvaged so far, reconfigure the atmospheric processors, and pray that thing doesn't release any toxins into our air supply. Even then, there's no guarantee we could provide the right environment for whatever's inside. Dr. Wright, could you determine what kind of life support they might need? The physician nodded enthusiastically. With detailed bioscans, I could make educated guesses about atmospheric composition, temperature requirements, perhaps even nutritional needs. But I'd need to get much closer to run those tests. Tommy shifted nervously. Captain, I know we're all thinking about doing the right thing here, but what if this is exactly what killed everyone in this battlefield? What if we're looking at patient zero of some alien plague? Sarah appreciated Tommy's caution, but something deep inside her rebelled against the idea of simply watching these creatures die. It went against everything her grandmother had taught her about helping those in need, regardless of who they were or where they came from. Here's what we're going to do, she announced. We're going to get close enough for detailed scans. Dr. Right, you'll have 1 hour to determine if it's safe to bring them aboard and what they might need to survive. If you can't guarantee our safety, we leave. If you think there's a chance. She paused, looking each crew member in the eye. Then, we take the risk. The next hour passed in tense concentration. The Dusty Rose maneuvered carefully around the organic pod while Dr. Wright conducted every scan their modest medical equipment could manage. Marcus monitored for any changes in the creature's condition, while Elena began preliminary calculations for clearing the cargo bay. Finally, Dr. Wright stepped back from his console and removed his glasses to clean them, a nervous habit Sarah had learned to recognize over the years. Well, Doc, she prompted. The life signs are definitely weakening. Based on the bioscans, I believe we're looking at a single large organism in some kind of protective hibernation state. The injuries appear to be external battle damage that's prevented the creature from maintaining its normal metabolic processes. Is it safe to bring aboard? Dr. Wright hesitated. I can't detect any harmful pathogens or toxins. The creature appears to be some kind of apex predator, based on its size and what I can determine about its physiology. But he replaced his glasses and met Sarah's gaze. It's dying, Sarah. Without intervention, it won't survive another few hours. Elena threw up her hands. So we're really going to risk our lives for some unknown alien creature that could eat us the moment it wakes up? It's what humans do, Dr. Wright said simply. We help. Even when it's dangerous. Even when it doesn't make logical sense. It's what makes us different from the empires that created this graveyard. Sarah looked around at her crew one more time. She could see the fear in their faces, but she could also see something else, a recognition of what Dr. Wright had said. They were human beings, not cold-hearted salvage operators. The choice before them was simple, even if it wasn't easy. All right, people. Let's save a life. The cargo bay of the Dusty Rose had been transformed into an improvised medical facility within 2 hours. Elena and Tommy had worked frantically to clear out their salvaged materials, while Dr. Wright jury-rigged atmospheric controls that could potentially support an unknown alien physiology. Marcus maintained a constant watch on the dying creature's biosigns, reporting each concerning drop in vital activity. Life signs are at 30% and falling, Marcus called out over the ship's intercom. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Sarah stood in the cargo bay, surveying their preparations. Emergency medical equipment from Dr. Wright's modest infirmary had been set up around the space they'd cleared for their unexpected patient. Elena had rigged additional power cables to support the environmental systems they might need, while Raj monitored communications for any sign that other ships might be approaching their location. Captain, I have to ask one more time, Elena said, wiping sweat from her forehead. Are we absolutely sure about this? Once that thing is aboard our ship, we're committed. If it turns out to be hostile, then we deal with it, Sarah replied firmly. Dr. Wright, are you ready for the medical side of this? The elderly physician was calibrating a bioscanner that would help him monitor the creature's condition in real time. As ready as I can be, given that I'm essentially performing xenobiology surgery without any knowledge of the patient's species. But, the basic principles should apply: maintain vital functions, treat obvious injuries, and hope for the best. Tommy looked up from where he was securing equipment. How exactly are we getting that thing aboard? It's massive, and we don't have a cargo crane rated for that kind of weight in a zero-gravity environment. Elena had already thought through the logistics. We're going to use the ship's magnetic grappling system to guide it into the bay, then seal the doors and pressurize. The tricky part will be controlling the descent so it doesn't crush itself when artificial gravity kicks in. I can handle the piloting, Sarah said. It's going to require some precise maneuvering, but the Dusty Rose has good thrusters for this kind of work. Over the next 30 minutes, they executed the most delicate salvage operation any of them had ever attempted. Sarah piloted the ship with surgical precision, using the external grappling arms to gently guide the organic pod toward their cargo bay. The creature was even larger than it had appeared on the scanners, nearly filling the entire space they had cleared for it. Careful with the rotation, Dr. Wright advised, watching the bioscanner readings. I think the creature's orientation is important for its circulatory system. Try to keep what appears to be the head elevated. The pod settled into the cargo bay with surprising gentleness. Up close, the damage to its surface was even more apparent. Long gashes revealed glimpses of what looked like metallic bone structure underneath the organic tissue. Some kind of acid or energy weapon had burned through sections of the protective shell, leaving the creature inside vulnerable to the vacuum of space. Sealing bay doors, Elena announced. Initiating atmospheric restoration. As air began flowing into the cargo bay, the creature's bioluminescent pattern suddenly brightened. Dr. Wright's scanner readings spiked with increased activity. It's responding to the oxygen, he reported excitedly. Vital signs are stabilizing, though still critically low. The creature was definitely suffocating out there. Sarah activated the artificial gravity system gradually, watching carefully as the massive pod settled fully onto the cargo bay floor. The creature was even more impressive with gravity to provide perspective. It looked like a cross between a gigantic armored beetle and some kind of predatory mammal, with sections of natural armor plating interspersed with areas of softer tissue. Now comes the hard part, Dr. Wright muttered, approaching the creature with his medical equipment. I need to figure out how to treat injuries on a life form I've never seen before. The first challenge was simply finding a way to assess the creature's condition. The pod appeared to be some kind of protective shell that the creature could generate around itself, but the battle damage had prevented it from sealing properly. Dr. Wright used his bioscanner to map the creature's internal structure, building a three-dimensional image of its anatomy. Fascinating, he murmured, studying the scan results. This appears to be a highly advanced predator species. Look at these bone density readings. This creature could probably tear apart a starship hull with its bare claws. And the muscle mass. He shook his head in amazement. I've never seen anything like it. Is it dangerous? Tommy asked nervously. Potentially very dangerous, Dr. Wright admitted. But, right now, it's too weak to be a threat to anyone. The question is whether we can keep it alive long enough for it to recover. Elena had been studying the environmental readings from the cargo bay. Atmosphere composition is holding steady, but the temperature regulation is tricky. This thing seems to prefer conditions about 10 degrees warmer than our normal ship environment. Make the adjustment, Sarah ordered. What else do you need, Doc? Dr. Wright was now examining the visible injuries on the creature's surface. The wounds are extensive but appear to be healing slowly. Whatever species this is, they have remarkable regenerative abilities. But they need nutrients and energy to power that healing. What kind of nutrients? Marcus asked from the cargo bay entrance, where he was monitoring ship sensors for any approaching vessels. That's the million-credit question, Dr. Wright replied. I'm detecting traces of various organic compounds in the creature's system, but I'll need to run more tests to determine what it normally eats. Over the following hours, the crew of the Dusty Rose found themselves becoming impromptu xenobiologists. Dr. Wright worked tirelessly to understand the creature's physiology, while the others helped monitor its condition and maintain the environmental controls. It was Elena who made the first breakthrough. While reviewing the scan data, she noticed something that Dr. Wright had initially overlooked. Doc, look at these energy readings from inside the creature. Those aren't just biological processes, there's definitely some kind of technology integrated into its body. Dr. Wright examined Elena's findings and his eyes widened. You're right. This isn't just a biological organism, it's some kind of biomechanical hybrid. These readings suggest cybernetic implants, possibly even artificial organs. A cyborg? Tommy asked. You mean like part machine, part living creature? More advanced than anything humans have developed, Dr. Wright confirmed. The integration between biological and technological systems is seamless. I can barely distinguish where one ends and the other begins. This discovery changed their approach to treating the creature. Instead of just focusing on biological healing, they now had to consider the technological components as well. Elena's engineering expertise became crucial as she helped Dr. Wright understand how the cybernetic systems functioned. The good news is that the technological components seem to be designed to enhance the creature's natural healing abilities, Dr. Wright reported after several more hours of analysis. The bad news is that they're running on some kind of bioelectric energy that's been depleted by the battle damage. Can we recharge them somehow? Sarah asked. Elena studied the energy patterns they were detecting. Maybe. The system seems designed to convert certain organic compounds into bioelectric energy. If we can figure out what those compounds are. It was Raj who provided the solution. While monitoring communications, he had been analyzing the battle debris around their location, trying to piece together what had happened during the fight 6 months ago. Captain, I've been reviewing the tactical data from the battle. According to the transmission logs I've decoded, both sides were using biological weapons, creatures engineered for combat. The Vortak called them war beasts and the Zalani referred to them as bioweapons. Are you saying our patient here was a weapon? Sarah asked. More than that, Raj continued. From what I can piece together, these creatures were considered too dangerous for either side to control properly. When the battle turned against them, both empires apparently abandoned their bioweapons rather than risk them falling into enemy hands. The implications were sobering. They had rescued what was essentially a living weapon, a creature designed for war and abandoned by its creators when it became inconvenient. But Dr. Wright's next discovery put everything in a new perspective. I've been analyzing the creature's brain activity, he announced. This isn't just some mindless weapon. The neural patterns suggest high intelligence, possibly even sapience. We're not dealing with a beast here. We're dealing with a thinking, feeling individual. That revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about saving an animal or preserving a valuable specimen. They were talking about rescuing a person, someone who had been abandoned to die by their own people. The cybernetic implants include what appears to be a communication interface, Elena added, studying the technological components. If we can figure out how to activate it, we might be able to communicate with them. First, we need to stabilize their condition, Dr. Wright insisted. The healing process is accelerating now that they're in a proper environment, but they're still critically weak. Sarah made a decision that would prove crucial. We're going to do whatever it takes to save them. Not because they might be valuable, not because we want to study them, but because it's the right thing to do. No one deserves to be abandoned to die alone. The crew spent the rest of the day working to improve their patient's condition. Elena rigged a bioelectric charging system based on her analysis of the creature's cybernetic components. Dr. Wright synthesized nutrient solutions based on the organic compounds he detected in the creature's system. Marcus and Raj took turns monitoring the ship's sensors to ensure they weren't discovered by any patrol vessels. By evening, their efforts were showing results. The creature's bioluminescent patterns had brightened considerably, and Dr. Wright's scans showed that the healing process was accelerating. The worst of the external wounds had begun to close, and the bioelectric energy levels were slowly rising. Vital signs are approaching normal ranges, Dr. Wright reported with satisfaction. I think we can safely say that they're going to survive. As if responding to his words, the creature stirred for the first time since they had brought it aboard. The movement was subtle, just a slight shift in position, but it was the first sign of consciousness they had seen. Are they waking up? Tommy asked nervously. Not yet, Dr. Wright replied, studying his readings. But brain activity is increasing. I think they're becoming aware of their surroundings on some level. Elena was monitoring the cybernetic systems when she noticed something new. The communication interface is coming online. I'm detecting what might be translation protocols, as if the system is designed to facilitate communication with other species. That would make sense for a weapon used by multiple alien empires, Raj observed. They'd need some way to give it orders. Or, Sarah said quietly, it might mean that this individual was forced to work with different species whether they wanted to or not. The more they learned about their patient, the more Sarah's determination to help them grew. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore, it was a chance to right a wrong, to show that not all species in the galaxy were willing to abandon their own when it became convenient. Captain, Marcus called from his monitoring station, I'm picking up a transmission from long range. Looks like a patrol ship heading this way, maybe 12 hours out. Sarah nodded. They would need to be careful. Most alien empires considered biological weapons to be extremely dangerous contraband. Being caught with their patient could result in their ship being destroyed without warning. We'll worry about that when the time comes, she decided. Right now, our priority is getting our patient back on their feet. Or claws. Whatever they have. Dr. Wright chuckled at that, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Based on the scans, I'd say claws are definitely involved. Along with teeth that could bite through starship hull plating. Good thing they're on our side, Elena muttered. As the ship's night cycle began, Sarah stood alone in the cargo bay, watching their patient rest. The creature's breathing was deep and steady now, and the bioluminescent patterns pulsed with healthy rhythm. She thought about the decision they had made, the risk they had taken to save someone they didn't even know. In a universe where the strong preyed on the weak and mercy was seen as weakness, humanity's tendency to help others was often viewed as a fatal flaw. But, looking at the slowly healing creature before her, Sarah couldn't bring herself to see compassion as anything other than strength. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. They would need to figure out how to communicate with their patient when they woke up, and they would need to decide what to do about the approaching patrol ship. But, tonight, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in months of scraping by on salvage work, pride in being human. The creature stirred again, and, for just a moment, Sarah thought she saw one massive eye open slightly, looking directly at her. Then, it closed again, and the creature returned to its healing sleep. Sleep well, she whispered. Tomorrow we find out who you really are. Sarah woke to the sound of the ship's emergency alert system echoing through the corridors. She rolled out of her bunk and grabbed her clothes, her mind immediately racing through possible problems. The Dusty Rose had been running smoothly when she'd gone to sleep, and their patient had been stable. Captain to the bridge, Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. We have a situation. Sarah arrived on the bridge to find her crew clustered around the main display screen. What she saw made her stomach drop. A massive Vorthack heavy cruiser was approaching their position, its dark hull bristling with weapon emplacements that could reduce the Dusty Rose to scrap in seconds. How long until they reach us? She asked, sliding into the captain's chair. 40 minutes, maybe less, Raj reported from the communications station. They're not answering our hails, and their weapon systems are powered up. Any chance they're just passing through? Elena asked hopefully. Marcus shook his head grimly. Their course correction was too precise. They're definitely heading for our exact coordinates. Sarah's mind raced through their options. They couldn't outrun a heavy cruiser in their converted mining ship, and they certainly couldn't fight one. That left hiding, surrender, or somehow convincing the Vorthack that they weren't worth the trouble. What's the status of our patient? She asked Dr. Wright, who had just arrived on the bridge. Stable and showing signs of consciousness, he replied. I think they might wake up within the next few hours. But, Sarah, if that's a Vorthack ship. They're probably here to reclaim their biological weapon, she finished. Which means they know we have someone they consider their property. Tommy's face had gone pale. What do we do? If they find the creature aboard our ship, they'll kill us all as thieves or spies. Sarah stood up and walked to the main display, studying the approaching warship. The Vorthack hegemony was one of the most ruthless empires in known space, built on a philosophy of conquest and domination. They didn't negotiate with lesser species, they simply took what they wanted. There might be another option, she said slowly. What if we ask our patient what they want to do? Elena looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. Captain, they're unconscious, and even if they weren't, we have no way to communicate with them. Actually, Dr. Wright interjected, Elena's work on the cybernetic interface has been progressing. We might be able to establish basic communication, especially if the creature is conscious enough to cooperate. It's worth a try, Sarah decided. Elena, how quickly can you get that communication system working?
Give me 20 minutes, Elena replied, already heading toward the cargo bay.
But I can't promise it'll work, and I definitely can't promise what we'll learn if it does. While Elena worked on the communication interface, the rest of the crew prepared for the worst-case scenario. Raj encrypted their personal logs and prepared to transmit them to a relay station. Marcus armed the ship's minimal defensive systems, not that they would make any difference against a heavy cruiser.
Tommy and Dr. Wright secured all loose equipment and medical supplies.
Sarah found herself pacing the bridge, watching the Vortak ship grow larger on their screens. In 15 years of salvage work, she had encountered alien warships before, but never in a situation like this. Usually, they were dealing with border patrol vessels that could be convinced to overlook minor violations with the right paperwork or small bribes.
This was different. The Vortak didn't just patrol, they hunted. Captain, Elena's voice came over the intercom. I think I've got something.
The interface is active, and I'm detecting neural activity that might be attempts at communication. Sarah hurried to the cargo bay, where she found Elena connected to the creature's cybernetic systems through a makeshift interface she had constructed from ship components and medical equipment. Dr. Wright was monitoring the creature's vital signs, while the massive being itself showed clear signs of consciousness. The creature was even more impressive awake than it had been unconscious.
Sarah estimated it was at least 4 meters tall and built like a living tank.
Its natural armor plating gleamed with a metallic sheen, and the bioluminescent patterns had changed to more complex designs that seemed to shift with the creature's thoughts. But it was the eyes that struck her most. Large, intelligent, and unmistakably aware, they followed her movements as she approached. There was no hostility in that gaze, only curiosity and what might have been gratitude. The translation protocols are working, Elena reported.
It's crude, but I think we can manage basic communication.
A mechanical voice suddenly filled the cargo bay, speaking in accented but understandable English.
Where am I? Who are you? Sarah stepped forward slowly, showing her empty hands. I'm Captain Sarah Chen.
You're aboard our ship, the Dusty Rose.
We found you dying in space and brought you here to help you heal.
The creature's massive head tilted slightly, processing this information.
You saved me? But I am weapon. Why would you save weapon?
The pain in that mechanical voice was unmistakable. Sarah felt her heart clench at the words.
Because you're not just a weapon.
You're a person, and no person deserves to be left to die alone.
Person?
The creature seemed to struggle with the concept.
I am. Korthak Battle Beast, designation. Omega 7. I am, Tool of War. What's your name? Sarah asked gently. Not your designation, your name. What do you call yourself?
There was a long pause before the creature responded.
I do not remember having name. Only designation. Dr. Wright stepped forward.
Your injuries are healing well, but you were very close to death when we found you.
Can you tell us what happened?
The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to darker colors.
Battle in the void.
Many ships, much death. When tide turned against Vortak, they abandoned all weapons.
Left us to die rather than let enemy capture. They abandoned their own people? Tommy asked, horrified.
We are not people to them, the creature replied. We are tools.
When tool breaks, you throw away.
Sarah felt a surge of anger at the casual cruelty the creature described. But before she could respond, Marcus's voice echoed urgently through the ship's intercom.
Captain, the Vortak ship will be in weapons range in 15 minutes. We're receiving a transmission. Sarah looked at the creature. That's probably them coming to reclaim you. What do you want to do?
The creature's eyes widened, a surprisingly human expression despite the alien features.
They return?
They never return for broken weapons.
Well, they're returning for you. The question is whether you want to go with them.
The creature seemed stunned by the concept that it had a choice.
I do not understand. You ask, what I want? Yes. What do you want to do?
Before the creature could answer, Sarah's communicator crackled with an incoming transmission from the Vortak ship. She activated it, and the bridge's audio system filled with the harsh, guttural voice of a Vorthack officer.
Salvage vessel, you will immediately surrender the stolen hegemony property you have aboard your ship. Failure to comply will result in your destruction.
Sarah looked at the creature, who was listening with what appeared to be growing agitation.
Do you want to go back to them? She asked quietly.
The creature's pattern shifted rapidly, indicating strong emotion.
I do not wish to return to cage.
But you will die if you protect me.
Let us worry about that, Sarah said firmly. The question is what you want.
The creature was quiet for a long moment, then spoke with growing strength in its mechanical voice.
I want to be free. I want to choose my own path. But I will not let you die for my freedom.
Nobody's dying today if I can help it, Sarah replied. She activated her communicator.
This is Captain Chen of the salvage vessel Dusty Rose. We don't have any of your property aboard our ship. Do not lie, human, the Vorthack voice snarled.
Our sensors detect the biosignature of Battle Beast Omega-7.
You will return it immediately. Omega-7 was abandoned to die in space, Sarah replied calmly. We found a dying person and provided medical assistance.
As far as I'm concerned, that makes them our patient, not your property. The creature, who Sarah had decided needed a real name, looked at her with something that might have been amazement.
You defend me? Against Vorthack?
I'm defending a person's right to choose their own path, Sarah corrected.
Now, what do you want to be called? I'm not using that designation anymore.
The creature thought for a moment. I remember dream images from before modification.
Green world, many trees. I was called Thane. I want to be Thane again.
Thane it is, Sarah said with a smile. Then, she keyed her communicator again.
This is Captain Chen.
Our patient, whose name is Thane, has chosen not to return with you.
They are exercising their right to self-determination.
The response was immediate and furious.
Rights? It is a weapon, not a person.
You have 1 minute to surrender our property or we will take it by force. Thane struggled to stand, their massive form rising to its full, impressive height. Despite the recent injuries, they moved with obvious power and grace.
I will not hide behind others. I will face them.
You're still recovering, Dr. Wright protested.
Your systems aren't fully operational yet.
Operational enough, Thane replied grimly.
You have given me greatest gift. You have reminded me. I am person, not thing. I will not let that gift cost you your lives. Sarah was about to respond when Elena suddenly straightened from her interface console. Captain, I'm reading something weird. Thane's cybernetic systems are connecting to our ship's computer network. Is that dangerous? Tommy asked nervously. I don't think so, Elena replied, studying her readings. It looks like they're trying to help with something.
Thane's bioluminescent patterns had changed to rapid, complex configurations. Your ship has good bones, but weak weapons.
I can improve temporarily. You can upgrade our ship? Sarah asked.
Cybernetic interface allows integration with compatible technology.
Your ship uses standard power distribution. I can redirect energy, enhance systems, for short time.
Do it, Sarah ordered without hesitation. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of activity as Thane's cybernetic systems interfaced with the Dusty Rose. Throughout the ship, systems that had been running at minimal efficiency suddenly surged with new power. Elena watched in amazement as their shields strengthened to levels she had never seen, while Marcus reported that their weapon systems were operating far above normal specifications.
How is this possible? Elena asked.
Vorthack bioweapons, designed to enhance any platform they operate from, Thane explained.
I am living ship upgrade when properly integrated.
The Vorthack heavy cruiser had close to weapons range and was powering up its main batteries when something unexpected happened. The Dusty Rose, which had been broadcasting as a helpless salvage vessel, suddenly lit up their sensors as something much more dangerous.
This is impossible, came the confused voice of the Vorthack commander. That vessel is showing combat ratings equivalent to a frigate.
Sarah smiled grimly and opened the communication channel.
This is Captain Chen. I'm going to make you an offer.
You can turn around and leave us alone, or you can try to take our crew member by force and discover just how enhanced our systems have become.
You dare threaten the hegemony? I'm not threatening anyone.
I'm protecting my crew member's right to choose their own path. The fact that my crew member happens to be someone you trained as a living weapon is your problem, not ours. There was a long pause from the Vorthack ship. Through the cargo bay's viewports, they could see the heavy cruiser's weapon arrays tracking their vessel, but no shots were being fired. You would risk war between species for one creature, the Vorthack commander finally asked. I would risk anything for the principle that thinking beings have the right to determine their own fate, Sarah replied firmly.
That's what makes us human. Another long silence. Then, unexpectedly, the Vorthack ship began to turn away. This matter is not finished, humans, came the parting message. The hegemony does not forget.
As the heavy cruiser disappeared into FTL, the crew of the Dusty Rose stood in stunned silence. They had just successfully defended a member of their crew against one of the galaxy's most powerful empires.
Did we really just do that? Tommy asked in amazement.
We did indeed, Dr. Wright replied with satisfaction. Thane's systems disengaged from the ship, returning the Dusty Rose to its normal operational status. The massive being looked around at the crew that had risked everything to defend their freedom.
I do not understand, Thane said slowly. You barely know me.
Yet you risked your lives for my choice.
Why?
Sarah smiled and put her hand on Thane's armored forearm, a gesture that 6 months ago would have seemed impossible.
Because that's what good people do for each other. And, welcome to the crew, Thane.
3 weeks after the encounter with the Vorthack heavy cruiser, life aboard the Dusty Rose had settled into a new routine. Thane had recovered fully from their injuries and was slowly adapting to their newfound freedom. The massive being spent much of their time in the enlarged cargo bay that had become their quarters, learning about human culture through the ship's database and practicing their English with Dr. Wright.
The language barrier had improved dramatically. Thane's cybernetic translation systems were remarkably sophisticated, and their natural intelligence allowed them to grasp linguistic nuances quickly.
What had started as halting, mechanical speech had evolved into more fluid conversation, though Thane's formal speaking style remained.
Captain Chen, Thane said as Sarah entered the cargo bay for their daily check-in, I have been studying human historical records.
I find myself confused by many of your species' actions. Sarah settled onto a supply crate that had been positioned as an improvised chair. Over the past weeks, she had grown comfortable with Thane's imposing presence. Despite their intimidating appearance and combat capabilities, the former battle beast had shown nothing but gentleness toward the crew. What's confusing you today? She asked with a smile. Your military history contains many examples of soldiers sacrificing themselves for their companions, even when tactical logic suggests withdrawal would be more beneficial. But, you also have records of individuals risking their lives to save enemies who were trying to kill them moments before.
Thane's bioluminescent pattern shifted to colors Sarah had learned indicated deep thought.
This behavior seems counterproductive to survival. It might seem that way, Sarah agreed.
But, humans tend to value certain principles more than simple survival.
Honor, compassion, the belief that every life has worth, those ideas shape our actions even when they might not make tactical sense.
The Vorthack taught that such thinking was weakness, Thane replied.
They said mercy was a flaw that would be eliminated through proper conditioning.
What do you think now?
Thane was quiet for a long moment, their massive claws unconsciously tracing patterns on the floor.
I think the Vorthack were wrong about many things.
When you defended my freedom, it was not weakness that drove you. It required great strength to stand against a heavy cruiser with only a salvage vessel. Physical strength wasn't what mattered in that moment, Sarah observed.
It was the strength to do what we believed was right, even when it was dangerous. Before Thane could respond, Elena's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from a civilian transport about 6 hours away. They're reporting engine failures and requesting assistance.
Sarah stood up, automatically switching into captain mode.
I'll be right there. She looked at Thane. Want to come observe? You might find it educational.
The bridge was buzzing with activity when Sarah arrived with Thane following behind her. The massive being had to duck slightly to fit through the doorways, but the ship's designers had built with a variety of species in mind.
What's the situation? Sarah asked. Marcus looked up from his console. Civilian transport Lucky Strike out of the Centauri colony. They were carrying mining equipment to the outer rim when their main engines failed. They're drifting about 6 light hours from the nearest inhabited system. Any other ships in the area? Negative.
We're the only vessel close enough to reach them before their life support runs out. Raj paused to listen to his headset.
They've got 43 passengers, including families with children. Sarah didn't hesitate. Set course to intercept. Maximum safe speed.
Captain, Tommy said nervously, we're still carrying a wanted fugitive, technically speaking.
If there are any authorities on that transport. Thane isn't a fugitive, Sarah replied firmly. They're a free person who chose not to return with their former captors.
And, we're not going to let 43 people die because we're worried about complications. Thane had been listening to this exchange with growing fascination.
You will risk exposing our location to help strangers?
Of course, Elena replied, as if the question was absurd.
They need help.
But, you gain nothing from helping them. In fact, as your crew member pointed out, it creates potential danger for us. Dr. Wright, who had arrived on the bridge during the conversation, chuckled softly.
Thane, you're still thinking like a Vorthack weapon. Humans don't help people because we expect to gain something from it. We help because they need help and we can provide it. This is the mercy that the Vorthack called weakness? Thane asked.
This is the strength that the Vorthack never understood, Sarah corrected. The journey to the Lucky Strike took 6 hours at maximum safe speed. During that time, Thane observed the crew's preparations with intense interest. Elena and Tommy worked together to prepare their ship's docking systems for a rescue operation. Dr. Wright organized medical supplies in case there were injuries among the stranded passengers. Marcus and Raj coordinated with the transport's crew to plan the most efficient rescue procedure. Your crew functions as a unified organism, Thane observed to Sarah as they watched the preparations. Each individual contributes their specialized capabilities toward a common goal.
That's what good crews do, Sarah agreed. We trust each other, and we work together. The Vorthack battle doctrine emphasizes individual superiority and dominance hierarchies. Weakness is eliminated, and the strong command through fear. How did that work out for them when they abandoned you in space?
Thane's pattern shifted to what Sarah had learned indicated amusement, a surprisingly human-like concept that Thane had developed.
Not well, I believe.
When they reached the Lucky Strike, they found a scene that would have been routine for an experienced rescue crew, but which provided Thane with their first direct observation of human altruism in action. The transport's engines had indeed failed catastrophically, leaving the ship drifting powerless with life support running on emergency reserves. Dusty Rose *, this is Captain Williams of the Lucky Strike, came the relieved voice over the communication system.
Thank God you're here. We've got maybe 8 hours of air left, and our backup power is failing. Don't worry, Captain Williams, Sarah responded. We'll have you out of there in no time. The rescue operation proceeded smoothly. Elena docked the Dusty Rose with the stranded transport while Dr. Wright prepared to receive any passengers who might need medical attention.
Marcus coordinated the transfer of people from the failing ship to their own vessel. What struck Thane most profoundly was watching the human crew interact with the rescued passengers. There was no assessment of their value, no calculation of what the Dusty Rose might gain from helping them. Sarah and her crew simply moved efficiently to save lives because lives needed saving.
How many passengers can we accommodate? Sarah asked Elena.
All of them, if we double up on quarters and convert some storage areas to temporary living space.
It'll be cramped, but everyone will have air and food. Do it.
Among the passengers was a young girl, maybe 8 years old, who had been separated from her parents during the emergency evacuation. She was crying when Tommy found her hiding in a storage compartment, terrified by the ship's emergency lighting and alarm systems. Thane watched in fascination as Tommy knelt down to the child's level, speaking softly and reassuringly. The salvage worker, who had been nervous around Thane for weeks, showed infinite patience and gentleness with the frightened girl.
It's okay, Tommy said softly. We're here to help. Do you want to find your mommy and daddy?
The girl nodded, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Tommy took her hand and began leading her toward the area where Dr. Wright was organizing the rescued passengers. Your crew member shows great compassion for the young one, Thane observed to Sarah.
Tommy's got a soft spot for kids, Sarah replied.
He was an orphan himself, so he understands what it's like to be scared and alone.
He was abandoned as well? In a way. His parents died in a mining accident when he was young.
The community raised him after that. Thane watched Tommy reunite the little girl with her frantic parents, observing the joy and relief on all their faces.
In Vortex society, weak offspring are eliminated. Those who cannot contribute are considered burdens.
Every child contributes just by being who they are, Sarah said firmly. They're our future, our hope, our reason for making the universe a better place. As the rescue operation continued, Thane found opportunities to help despite their imposing appearance. Their cybernetic strength made them ideal for moving heavy equipment and supplies. Several of the rescued passengers were initially frightened by Thane's presence, but they quickly realized that the massive being was there to help them. Dr. Wright introduced Thane to the passengers as a member of our crew who's been instrumental in our rescue operations. He didn't elaborate on Thane's origins, and most people were too grateful to be saved to ask detailed questions. They accept me as one of you, Thane observed to Dr. Wright as they worked together to set up temporary sleeping arrangements.
Because that's what you are, the physician replied. You're part of our crew, part of our family. Species doesn't matter to us. Family? The people we care about and who care about us. The people we would sacrifice for and who would sacrifice for us.
Thane was quiet for a moment.
I have never had family.
You do now, Dr. Wright said simply.
The journey to the nearest space station took 2 days.
During that time, Thane experienced something entirely new to them, being part of a community. The rescued passengers, initially wary of the unusual crew member, gradually warmed to Thane's gentle nature. Children, especially, seemed drawn to the massive being's patient demeanor. The little girl Tommy had found, whose name was Lucy, became particularly attached to Thane. She would sit near them in the cargo bay, chattering about her home on Centauri Colony and her pet cat named Whiskers.
Thane listened with fascination to her innocent observations about the universe. Are you a robot? Lucy asked one afternoon, studying Thane's cybernetic implants with the direct curiosity only children possess.
I am partially cybernetic, Thane explained carefully.
Part biological organism, part machine. That's cool. Can you lift really heavy things? Yes, I can. Can you show me?
Thane looked around and spotted a supply crate that probably weighed several hundred kilograms. They lifted it easily with one clawed hand, holding it steady while Lucy giggled with delight. You're like a superhero, she declared. The concept of superhero was new to Thane, but Dr. Wright explained it later, fictional characters who use their special abilities to help others and protect the innocent.
Fictional? Made-up stories.
But the important part is that they choose to use their power to help people rather than hurt them.
Is that what I am doing? It's what you're choosing to do.
And that choice is what makes you who you are, not your cybernetic implants or your combat training. When they finally reached Kepler Station, the rescued passengers disembarked with profound gratitude. Captain Williams insisted on paying the Dusty Rose crew a substantial salvage fee for the rescue, despite Sarah's protests that no payment was necessary. You saved 43 lives, he told her firmly. That's worth more than money, but money is what I can give you. As the last of the passengers left their ship, Lucy ran back to hug Thane's massive leg. Thank you for helping us, she said solemnly. I hope I see you again someday. After she was gone, Thane stood quietly in the cargo bay for a long time. Sarah found them there an hour later, staring out the viewport at the space station.
What are you thinking about? She asked.
I am beginning to understand something, Thane replied slowly.
The Vortex taught that purpose came from function, that I existed to fight and destroy. But, watching your crew, experiencing these past weeks, I believe purpose comes from choice.
What do you choose?
I choose to be like you.
To use my abilities to help others rather than harm them.
Thane turned to face Sarah, their bioluminescent patterns bright with determination. I choose to be human, even though I am not human by birth.
Sarah smiled and reached up to place her hand on Thane's armored shoulder.
Being human isn't about biology, Thane.
It's about how we treat each other.
And, by that measure, you're one of the most human people I've ever met.
As the Dusty Rose prepared to depart Kepler Station, Thane had found something the Vortak had tried to take away: not just freedom, but purpose.
Not just survival, but meaning. Not just existence, but life. And they had found family.
6 months had passed since Thane joined the crew of the Dusty Rose, and the salvage ship had become something entirely different from what it had been. Word of their rescue operations had spread through the civilian shipping networks, and they found themselves called upon more often to help stranded vessels than to salvage scrap metal. The crew had discovered that saving lives was far more rewarding than scraping by on salvage work. Thane had become an integral part of these operations. Their cybernetic systems could interface with almost any ship design, often allowing them to perform temporary repairs that bought time for proper rescue operations. Their immense strength made them invaluable for emergency evacuations, and their combat training proved useful in the occasional encounter with pirates or raiders. But it was Thane's evolving understanding of human nature that had become their greatest asset. The former battle beast had developed an intuitive grasp of how to help frightened people stay calm during emergencies. Children, especially, responded well to Thane's patient, gentle demeanor. "You've become quite the diplomat," Dr. Wright observed as they finished treating the crew of a merchant vessel they had rescued from engine failure. "I've watched you talking that panicked engineer through the repair procedure."
A year ago, could you have imagined yourself in that role? Thane's bioluminescent pattern shifted to the warm gold color that indicated contentment.
"A year ago, I could not have imagined myself at all. I was a weapon, not a person with thoughts and feelings." The conversation was interrupted by Marcus calling from the bridge.
"Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim." "Sounds serious." Sarah hurried to the bridge with Thane following behind. The message that greeted them was unlike anything they had received before. The transmission was from Admiral Hayes of the Human Defense Fleet, one of the highest-ranking officers in human space. To any vessels receiving this transmission, the Admiral's recorded message began: "We have a critical situation developing in the Proxima sector. A Zalani collective battle fleet is moving toward the colony world of New Haven. The colony's defenses are minimal, and we cannot get reinforcement fleets there in time. Any vessels capable of rendering assistance are requested to proceed immediately to New Haven's coordinates." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zalani Collective was the other major empire that had fought in the battle where they found Thane. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and the complete subjugation of enemy populations. "New Haven has almost 2 million colonists," Raj reported, pulling up the colony's data files. "Mostly civilian families who moved there for the agricultural opportunities." "How far away are we?" Sarah asked. Marcus checked their navigation systems. 18 hours at maximum speed. "But, Captain, we're talking about going up against a Zalani battle fleet." "We're not a warship." "No," Sarah agreed, "but we're not helpless either." She looked at Thane. "What do you think? Could your systems enhance our ship enough to make a difference?" Thane was quiet for a moment, their patterns cycling through complex configurations that indicated intense thought. "The Zalani Collective uses similar bioweapon technology to the Vortak. My systems are designed to counter such weapons." "But, Sarah, if we do this, there will be no hiding what I am. The entire galaxy will know that humans harbor a Vortak bioweapon." "You're not a Vortak bioweapon anymore," Elena said firmly. "You're Thane, crew member of the Dusty Rose. And if the galaxy has a problem with that, they can take it up with us." Dr. Wright nodded in agreement. "We've already established that we don't abandon family members when things get difficult." Tommy, who had overcome his initial fear of Thane months ago, added his voice to the chorus. "Besides, those are innocent people down there. Kids like Lucy from the Lucky Strike. We can't just let them die because we're worried about political complications." Sarah looked around at her crew, her family, and saw unanimous determination on every face. Including Thane's. "All right, people. Let's go save a world." The journey to New Haven gave them time to plan their approach. Thane's cybernetic systems interfaced with the ship's computers, analyzing the tactical data from the emergency transmission. What they learned was sobering. The Zalani fleet consists of 12 warships, including 3 heavy dreadnoughts, Thane reported. New Haven's orbital defense consists of 6 automated weapon platforms and 2 patrol corvettes. "That's not much of a contest," Marcus observed grimly.
The Zilani tactic will be to deploy bioweapons to disable the planet's population while their fleet eliminates the orbital defenses, Thane continued. Once the colony is helpless, they will land ground forces to begin the subjugation process.
Bioweapons like you? Elena asked.
Similar, but designed for different purposes.
Zilani bioweapons are primarily intended to spread paralytic toxins through the atmosphere.
The population becomes helpless but, alive, more useful for slave labor. Sarah felt sick at the casual way Thane described such horror, but she reminded herself that this was the universe Thane had been created for. The fact that they had risen above that programming was remarkable.
Can you counter those bioweapons? She asked.
My systems include anti-bioweapon protocols developed by both empires, Thane replied. But I would need to be in direct contact with their deployment system to activate them.
Meaning?
I would need to board one of the Zilani ships. The bridge fell silent again as everyone processed what Thane was suggesting. Boarding an enemy warship during battle was essentially a suicide mission, even for someone with Thane's capabilities. There has to be another way, Dr. Wright protested.
Some way to counter the bioweapons without putting you in that kind of danger.
Perhaps, Thane said quietly, but not one that would be as effective.
And, Sarah.
They turned to face the captain directly.
I have been thinking about something you told me when we first met.
You said that humans risk their lives for principles, even when it does not make tactical sense.
That's true. I understand now. Some things are worth dying for.
The freedom to choose one's own path. The protection of innocents who cannot protect themselves.
The defense of family. Thane's pattern shifted to the deep blue color that Sarah had learned indicated absolute resolve. If I can save 2 million people by risking my life, then that is what I choose to do. Thane, Sarah began.
You gave me the greatest gift possible when you taught me that I was a person capable of making choices, Thane continued.
Now I choose to use that gift to save others. When they arrived at New Haven, the situation was exactly as bad as they had feared.
The Zilani fleet was already in orbit around the planet, and reports from the surface indicated that bioweapon attacks had begun. The orbital defenses were putting up a brave fight, but they were clearly outmatched. This is Admiral Hayes aboard the Determination, came a transmission from the small human defense fleet that had managed to reach the system.
Unidentified salvage vessel, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This is a combat zone. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the salvage vessel Dusty Rose. We're here to help.
Captain Chen, I appreciate the sentiment, but this is not a job for civilians.
Please withdraw to a safe distance.
Sarah looked at her crew, then made a decision that would change the course of the battle.
Admiral, we have aboard our ship someone who can counter the Zilani bioweapons. We're not leaving.
There was a pause before Admiral Hayes responded.
Captain, what exactly are you talking about? I'm talking about stopping those bioweapons from killing everyone on the planet below.
But we'll need your fleet's support to get close enough to the Zilani ships.
This is highly irregular, Captain Chen. What kind of equipment do you have that could counter bioweapons?
Sarah looked at Thane, who nodded gravely.
Not equipment, Admiral. A person. A former Vortak bioweapon who chose to join our crew and fight for freedom instead of tyranny.
The communication channel was silent for so long that Sarah began to wonder if they had lost the connection. Finally, Admiral Hayes's voice returned, tight with disbelief.
Did you just tell me that you have a Vortak bioweapon aboard a civilian salvage vessel?
I told you that we have a crew member named Thane who used to be a Vortak bioweapon but chose to become something better.
And, right now, they're our best chance of saving those people. Another long pause.
Then, Captain Chen, this is either the craziest thing I've ever heard, or it's exactly what we need.
Can your crew member really stop those bioweapons? They can if we can get them close enough to the Zilani deployment ships.
Then, God help us all, because that's what we're going to try. The battle that followed would later be studied in military academies across human space as an example of how desperate courage could overcome impossible odds. The human defense fleet, supported by the enhanced systems of the Dusty Rose, launched a coordinated assault on the Zilani formation. Thane's cybernetic integration had transformed the salvage ship into something approaching a light cruiser in terms of combat capability. But their real value came when they managed to board a Zilani bioweapon deployment ship during the height of the battle. The assault was broadcast across the emergency frequencies, so everyone involved in the battle could witness what happened next. Thane, moving through the alien ship with deadly efficiency, reached the bioweapon control systems and began the process of turning the Zilani weapons against themselves. "This is for everyone who was abandoned to die," Thane's voice came across the communication channels as they worked. "This is for the children who deserve to grow up free. This is for the crew that taught me what it means to be human." The effect was immediate and devastating for the Zilani fleet. Their own bioweapons turned against them, disabling ship after ship as their crews succumbed to the paralytic toxins they had intended for the planet below. Within an hour, the entire Zilani battle fleet was drifting helplessly in space. But the victory came at a cost. Thane's assault on the bioweapon ship had exposed them to massive amounts of radiation and toxins. By the time they were rescued and brought back to the Dusty Rose, Dr. Wright's scan showed that their cybernetic systems were failing. "How bad is it?" Sarah asked as she stood beside Thane's medical bed in the ship's infirmary. Dr. Wright's expression was grim. "The damage to their cybernetic systems is extensive. I can stabilize them, but..." He paused, struggling with the words. "Sarah, I don't think there's anything we can do to reverse the damage." Thane's voice was weak but clear. "I am dying, am I not?" "We don't know that for certain," Dr. Wright protested. "Your species has remarkable healing abilities." "With time, Doctor," Thane interrupted gently, "I can feel my systems shutting down." "But I am not afraid." Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. "Thane, you saved 2 million people down there. You're a hero." "I am something better than a hero," Thane replied with a faint smile. "I am someone who chose to use their life for something meaningful." "You taught me that, Sarah. All of you did." Elena, Marcus, Tommy, and Raj had gathered around the medical bed, along with Dr. Wright and Sarah. The crew that had become a family was saying goodbye to one of their own. "I want you all to know," Thane continued, their voice growing weaker, "that these months with you have been the best of my existence. You showed me what it means to be truly alive. You gave me freedom, purpose, family, and, most importantly, you gave me choice." Admiral Hayes's voice came over the ship's communications system. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Hayes. I wanted to personally thank your crew member. What they did today, it saved not just New Haven, but potentially dozens of other worlds the Zilani would have targeted." Thane's bioluminescent patterns flickered weakly, but they managed to respond. "Tell the Admiral that it was my honor to choose to fight for humanity." As the life faded from Thane's eyes, their final words were directed to the crew that had become their family. "Thank you for teaching me how to be human." The funeral service held for Thane 3 days later was attended by representatives from across human space. Admiral Hayes personally delivered a posthumous Medal of Honor, making Thane the first non-human to receive humanity's highest military decoration. But, for the crew of the Dusty Rose, the real memorial was the decision they made together in the weeks that followed. Using the reward money from the New Haven rescue, they established the Thane Foundation, an organization dedicated to rescuing and rehabilitating abandoned bioweapons and other exploited individuals throughout the galaxy. "Thane showed us that anyone can choose to become human," Sarah said at the Foundation's dedication ceremony. "Not human by birth, but human by choice. Human in spirit. Human in the values that matter most." The Dusty Rose continued its rescue operations, but now with a broader mission. They sought out others like Thane, beings who had been used as tools by cruel empires but who retained the capacity for growth and choice. Some were bioweapons. Others were cybernetic slaves or genetically modified servants. All of them were given the same opportunity Thane had received, the chance to choose their own path. 6 months after Thane's death, Sarah stood on the bridge of their ship, now officially designated as a Foundation rescue vessel. Elena approached with a report from their latest mission. "The 3 Zilani bioweapons we rescued from that abandoned research station are adapting well," she reported. "Dr. Wright says they're showing remarkable progress in developing individual personalities and preferences." "Good," Sarah replied. "What have they chosen for names?" "Hope, Freedom, and Chance." Sarah smiled. Thane would have liked those names. They represented everything their friend had come to value: the hope for a better future, the freedom to choose one's own path, and the chance to make a difference in the universe. In the months and years that followed, the story of Thane and the crew of the Dusty Rose spread throughout the galaxy. It became a legend that inspired others, not just humans, but members of many species who had grown tired of the endless cycles of conquest and domination that characterized so much of galactic civilization. The Thane Foundation rescued hundreds of abandoned bioweapons.